WPTV.
Hello and welcome back to the desk. We're joined by Wyatt, Justin, Dylan, and Samantha to break down the William Patterson baseball team. Now, the baseball team just returned from Florida with a record of 6-6-1. Maybe not the best trip, but what impressed you from the trip?
Well, their win over number 7 Wisconsin was a big, big win for the team. And you think from beating a top 10 team in the country, they would piggyback and rattle off a few wins. But after that, if I'm not mistaken, they got shut out by a much lesser opponent. Yes. So I think, it's important they got the big win, but some consistency moving forward after this Florida trip is something I'm looking for.
Yeah, we could definitely use some consistency on the team, but that was the one thing we kind of knew that they're going to lack going into because they didn't really know what the pitching rotation was. There's a lot of question marks on the roster just because of the turnover. Like, they lost a lot of guys from last year too. So losing some games they should win, and arguably winning some games they should lose, beating a number 7 ranked team, and they're in the game with the number 6 ranked Whitewater in Wisconsin as well. They lost that game 7-9. So they've shown that they have that competitive spirit, that they can keep up with the good teams, but it comes down to consistency.
Well, what surprised me is that they played a doubleheader against St. Norbert College, and their first game they ended up losing 4-1. And after losing the first game, it's hard to gain your morale, but they did it. They ended up winning their second game. It was 6-4, and I think that they did a really good job keeping their morale because doubleheaders are rough, and if you lose the first game, your head's not in it.
I thought the biggest thing, I don't think anything impressed me from this. Even that win, we knew going into this week in Florida, this William Patterson baseball team was really good. And we knew, just talking to some of the players, they could have came out of this ranked and maybe even top 15. They went out there and they beat number 7 Lacrosse. This William Patterson team, I thought going in, I thought they should have had a lot better pitching. And going into Florida, it's warm weather. You should have a better pitching. I mean, pitching up here in Wayne, it's 30 degrees outside. They got a game on Saturday, forecast 35 degrees, and the pitching wasn't up to par what it should have been in Florida. But other than that, they got that big win, and they got a rally going into conference play.
Now, one of the positives was Mike Abate was named the Pioneer Player of the Week, so that is a good thing to take from him. What have you seen from him that's impressed you? I mean, Pioneer Player of the Week, so he's clearly got the stats to back it up.
Well, this guy, Mike Abate, has been straight up just balling out at this point. The guy's batting .360, slugging .620. He has hit 2 home runs already, not a power hitter at that point, but he plays a great center field. And as we know from Dylan, this kid, his hamstrings have just gone on him, and now he's not practicing but only playing in games.
Yeah, it's tough. Now, what player has impressed you guys?
Eric Rosenberg impressed me. He's a pitcher. I just think he's a really strong pitcher at this point. He's got a 2.55 ERA. He's pitched 17.2 innings. He only started 3 times, but he does have 15 strikeouts, and I think that's very impressive. And with this team being so inconsistent, you need a pitcher like this to keep you going. This is going to help them win games.
Justin?
For me, it's got to be Carlos Perez. He's a freshman this year. He's the DH, but there's a chance he might get some fielder time with injuries coming through, but he's been fantastic. He's hitting .295 on the season so far, 13 hits. That's up there, about top 5 on the team. He has 7 RBIs, so he's been playing fantastic so far. And interesting to see if he's going to get more minutes and more opportunities later on the season because so far he really has earned it.
Yeah, and for me, it's got to be Mike Knopf. He started all 13 games so far this season. He's batting .295. He's finding the holes. In years past, he's hit ropes that have just been, turned into amazing defensive plays by the opponent, but this year he's really finally getting on base. And he also punched a few kids out in Florida. He's showing off the arm behind the plate. So I think offensively and defensively, Mike Knopf is one of the more consistent players we've seen on this Pioneers baseball team, showing senior leadership.
Now, the team did struggle in Florida, but they have a lot of big games coming up in conference, and this is where they need to get the wins. What do you expect in their conference play coming up? Are they going to get the big wins that they need to get now?
I'm not exactly sure yet. They did go 3-6 in the Florida trip. That was their final record in the 9 games. But they've shown this season past that sometimes, even coming off a hot Florida, they struggle in the conference. So playing against teams like Montclair, like Kane, like Rutgers Newark, and NJCU, those are some big games that they need to get wins with, and they have to make sure they win the home games. I think a lot of people don't stress that enough, and not just in baseball, but in all sports, the home games matter the most. So if they win the home games and they go 500 on the road, I think that's a good season for them. Maybe they can get to playoff action.
Right, for me, they need to get back to the fundamentals, bottom line. Over the trip, they had 10 to 12 infield errors, specifically pop-ups in the infield have been a nightmare for this team. Needing to get back to the basics is the most important thing for this Pioneer team moving forward. They got to have just, basic practices where they're literally just taking infield, outfield, trying to get base hits. I don't know how else to put it other than they haven't been able to practice because of the weather here, and they've only had games out in Florida, so they haven't really had a solid practice in a long time. They got to get back to simple baseball.
I think it's hard to say what they're going to do in the conference games because last year they went 9-9. There's a few games where they won both games, like Rutgers-Newark, Rutgers-Camden. You think they're going to win, but then they're so inconsistent afterwards. They play 2 schools, they lose one, and then they win one. It's hard to tell where they're going to go because you just don't know how they're going to do with these other teams.
Yeah, well, as we all know, in every single sport we play, the NJAC Conference is one of the best in the nation, so the games do not get any easier from now on. But I think with the cold weather, William Patterson's style has been to pitch a guy maybe 3-4 innings, and I think you're going to have to get such consistent play out of all your pitchers. You can't just go 1 through 5, your starting pitchers. No one's going to give you 6 or 7 innings, especially in this cold weather. So I think the pitching, because you know your runs are going to come from, even with the loss of Mike Rowe out for the season, I still think there's enough power on this team to go play in the NJAC, but the pitching has got to stay consistent for the rest of the season.
All right, to update us on the rest of our Pioneers, we go to our correspondent, Dante Vocaturo.
William Patterson Golf was set to open their spring season today, but the Susquehanna Invitational was unfortunately canceled. The team will tee off for the first time in 2017 on March 28th at the Eastern University Spring Invitational. The Pioneer softball team opened up their season in Florida going 6-6 over a 1-week span. The final game was a 5-3 win over the College of St. Scholastica, marked by an explosive 5th inning. A solo home run from junior Caitlin Peretti in the 6th inning preserved the win for the Pioneers. The team plays a doubleheader against Manhattanville College on Tuesday, March 28th.
Thanks, Dante. That's all for William Patterson Sports, but don't go anywhere because up next is some March Madness.